You're second believers in the magically weird. What does the second believer bit mean?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for having us. The second believer is, look, it takes the founder to have a lot of belief in themselves and what they're up to. And our role is to identify that belief and just be right there next to them at the very earliest stages. We're talking about backing companies before they really have a product. In a lot of cases, it's just two people in a room. And our role as the second believer is to be there for them and believe with everything we have and have them build the future that they imagine.
You have phenomenal background, Cyan, coming from Founders Fund. You say you're addicted to this early stage investing, but you also talk about sort of backing entrepreneurs that are absurd or have at least absurd and unconventional ideas. Have you ever backed anyone where the idea remains absurd, or do they all end up becoming conventional wisdom?
Well, obviously, you don't get everything right, and so some things do maintain being absurd.
Is there an example?
Eventually, well, there's a lot of examples that continue to be absurd. You're basically too early, and you're not right about timing. But some things, they end up becoming consensus investments, and you end up seeing them on your show on the Bloomberg terminals. But we like to get ahead of it and invest in them early when it's not a thing and there hasn't been a term coined for the whole space yet.
Yeah.
But eventually it does.
I mean, Lee, I think of many would have thought sending gigantic rockets that then you can reuse and even catch the boosters of would have seemed absurd a long time ago, but you helped with early checks into the likes of SpaceX, Uber, Anduril. Lee, is there a consistent factor in the companies that you're backing?
Yeah. All the businesses that we back at the stage when they're really absurd before they become consensus are independently derived. The founder has followed their own curiosity to something that no one else sees. I like to say they're in a room by themselves, and that's a really good sign. So our job is to be in that room with them and to show us the future they see. So yes, Anduril and all of these businesses that Cyan and us have all backed were absurd. It sounded crazy. But now they're here on Bloomberg TV. So yeah, they enter the mainstream over time, and our role is to be there for them as they tell us the future. So the main theme is just independently derived and derived with curiosity.
Cyan, we were just seeing a list of portfolios, companies that you've backed in prior funds, companies that you back now. I'm interested in Crusoe in particular because this is about data center capacity, AI infrastructure, but doing it with the climate in mind. What drew you to that company in particular?
I'm actually going to toss this one to Lee. I think he deserves most of the credit for Crusoe. He was the first check into Crusoe ever and saw this company before anyone else did, and he actually brought it to me at Founders Fund. And it's how Lee and I actually developed some of our working relationship. I think it would be best for him to answer this. He deserves all the credit.
Lee, go into this moment, given look, we've got a day where CoreWeave is going to the market, and many are questioning the need for AI infrastructure. Are you questioning it?
No, not at all. Crusoe's a really special business. Yes, we were the second believers in that business at the earliest stage. What they saw, what Chase and Cully saw initially, was a real need for energy. And a real need for actually building these data centers in very difficult places. And that, CoreWeave is a great business. We're really excited about the space in general. We believe Crusoe has a different business model and a different opportunity ahead of it, where they really have focused on energy from day one. And as we know, energy is the real bottleneck for what it takes to build a great AI application and build these data centers. So we're really thrilled.
Cyan, you've built a very unique space within which you work. You've built a unique philosophy on the way you invest. And you've got your fourth fund, I think is $181 million in excess of. How are you thinking about where the talent is that you back? Are you all about West Coast, where you currently sit? Are you thinking about outside of that particular area of Silicon Valley?
Yeah, we're location agnostic. We have venture partners all over the world. We have a venture partner, Pascal Levy-Garbua, who's in France. We have Justin Mayers, who's in Austin, Texas. We're always looking to expand the team. We punch above our weight for our fund size. Magical founders exist everywhere. And, what we're looking for are people who are just, thinking about how they're going to fundamentally transform the future for humanity. And they're thinking about very big ideas. And so we like to think 6 to 7 years ahead. Going back to Crusoe, we identified that energy was going to be needed for crypto as well as AI before AI was even a space. And so that's what we're doing right now, is we're thinking about what comes next. And so while everybody's investing sort of in the Cambrian explosion of the application layer, we're thinking about what does this enable 6 to 7 years from now. And so we're already looking at things like biotechnology, nanotechnology, et cetera. And you can always count on Long Journey to be thinking about the future, because it's a long journey before they ever end up on NASDAQ. We have to be able to see this idea when it's just a napkin and a bunch of people in a house potentially, and give them their first check and believe in them.
House, garage, room. You've got roughly 130 companies, Cyan, that you've backed thus far. That's a lot. And I'm thinking about how you're attracting the LPs into fund after fund. What do you think is the ability to weather what has been a tough time in the VC market?
Well, we're very differentiated. I think that our LP base sees that when they look across, all of their fund managers. They're seeing that there's not a lot of duplication because we're looking into the future. We're finding people that look absurd, and so everybody's passing on them. And so, when you have a crazy idea about the future, if you think about Uber, when they went out to pitch Uber, everyone said to me when I tried to pass that deal on to my co-investor, my colleagues, no one's going to get in a stranger's car. If you look at Airbnb, they said no one's going to stay on a stranger's couch. If you look at Niantic, they said no one's going to catch invisible Pokemon. If you look at SpaceX, they said no individual in the private sector deserves to launch rockets into space. The list goes on and on. So I'm looking for, one of my ex-colleagues, Jeff Lewis, liked to call it a narrative violation, and that's how he coined it. But that's what I'm looking for, are, things where I have a firm belief and I can see the future, and no one else can. You're going to get a pricing advantage. And we continuously bat above average, and we're doing incredibly well, and our LPs see that. And so I know it's a competitive and a tough landscape to raise right now, but I think our LPs are very excited and continue to be in what we're doing.